Welcome to the May 20th, 2019 Zoning Board of Appeals, the meeting of the Town of Raymond. The Zoning Board of Appeals will come to order. The board does have a quorum this evening, and I'm now going to do a roll call, and if members would please state their names. We'll start with
Louise Lester.
Led Sorelli.
Joanne Stinson.
Rick Welch.
Thank you very much. This is a public proceeding, and unless the board specifically votes to go into executive session, you have the right to hear everything that is being said and to look at all of the exhibits that are presented. Please notify the chair if you're unable to see or hear. The board works from a published agenda and will be considering tonight's items in the following order. Call to order as we've done. The new business tonight, we have an appeal. Robert and Gail Volpe, a side setback reduction. We have David Garish, the Brake Exhaust Center, looking for a conditional use to sell used cars. And then we have Code Enforcement Officer Communications and adjournment. In each instance, the burden is upon the applicant to demonstrate compliance with the provisions of the applicable ordinances or state law. After the board votes on the merits of each application, it will prepare a written notice of a decision. Because the notice of decision may substantially affect any appeals rights, and also as a matter of courtesy, the board asks that those attending the meeting with regards to a specific application not leave until the board has completed its discussion. Generally speaking, appeals from adverse decisions must be filed with the Superior Court as otherwise provided by law within 45 days of this board's decision. Also, to be certain that you preserve your individual right to file any such appeal, you must be certain that the board's record evidences your appearance this evening in opposition and the basis for your opposition. All persons speaking, including representatives of the applicant and members of the public, are asked to stand at the microphone, to sign the speaker sheet, state their name, address, and affiliation with the application, whether you're for, opposed, or neutral. All persons speaking shall address all remarks or questions to the chair, and it's the podium right in the back that you'll go up to speak. The meeting is not over until the board has formally adjourned. Any discussion not included on the meeting agenda or accepted by the board is to be held until after the adjournment or conducted outside of the meeting room. So to begin, we will start with the first application, which is Robert and Gail Volpe, map 68, lot 008000. This is an LRR2 zone, 51 Quarry Cove Road, and looking for a side setback reduction. So the applicant would like to begin for us to explain what he's looking for.
Thank you.
So just state your name and your
Okay.
address for the record.
Robert Volpe, 51 Quarry Cove Road. My wife Gail, she's camera shy, so I have due diligence of being at the podium. Back on April 1st, we submitted appeal to the board in regards to our house on 51 Quarry Cove. In 2002, we relocated from Casco, and having spent the first winter, we realized that we had some serious challenges, and the hardships were due to the elevation of the garage, the pitch of our driveway, the ice that was created from the runoff, and in our appeal, we actually talk about the water backup into the basement as well as the road runoff polluting the lake. We've been a member of the Raymond Waterways since we moved to Raymond. We care deeply about the lake, and we do feel that by looking at improving the landscape, that will definitely help with the runoff. So
Well, you could kind of describe what it is
Yeah.
that you're asking for.
Okay,
And
so we are asking to,
Give us a detail of,
okay, so we're asking to
project.
take the garage and lift it, so that it will come up maybe a foot or so. That will create a better pitch, to the driveway. We have also asked our neighbor, Bert Steen, who is here, to allow us to, move the garage, or expand it so that it'll be another 4 feet in width. So the width would change from 20 to 24.
can you talk about the landscaping regarding how this is helping the drainage situation heading towards the lake?
So right now, the water is running directly down the driveway, and, right into the back. I mean, I sent some photos where you could actually see that. With the driveway being lifted, the water will then be diverted over to the left side, where we have our leach field. We also want to remove the concrete. So the driveway is a concrete slab. We will take up at least 50 or 60% of that, maybe all of it, and add in just packed gravel.
Do you happen to know do you have anything that states, or we can calculate it, the square footage of your lot?
There were some maps that I included.
Right, okay, I just didn't know if you had
Yep.
anything else that gave it, because we can approximate off of that.
Yep.
And also you mentioned, bear with me, you mentioned a 12 by 12, or 12 by 12 land dock?
There's a 12 by 12 land dock that was part of the property when we bought it. Actually, it was written in the agreement that it was grandfathered as a structure. We would like to take that and actually convert the square footage into a connector so that now the garage can be connected to the house.
Scott, does this have permitting?
no, there's other things in there. Former code officer Chris Hansen had discussions. There was a oversight that originally a violation that Mr. Volpe took care of. He was very, very helpful. Chris said he was with getting it back to where it was. And part of that was the 12 by 12 deck ran into a gray area between code officers as to how that was to be dealt with. There was a letter from Mr. Volpe who said that he wrote the letter, but there was no return response from the town at the time, and that's about the time that Chris left. So it kind of got dropped at that time.
So if I can continue on what Scott said, I actually went to the town and met with Chris on his last day and said, now I'd like to continue, take that shoreline dock, and he had walked the back of the house. There is a stone pathway that goes between the house and the garage, and not knowing code, so I don't want to try to admit that I know what Scott knows, but there is impermeable material, which is there, and it lays out the footprint, and it also would be the exact footprint of where this connector would be. And it would add actually about 100 square feet. The dock, the shoreline dock, which is right on the water, is 12 by 12. And there is a code enforcement officer, I think his name is Nick Adams. He had, I guess, Scott, you had asked him if it was something that the state was amenable to doing, and it seemed like this has been done before. So I think that's where Chris was going when he had actually walked it and said, you definitely can do this. And before I took this dock down, which is a real pleasure to have, I didn't want to take it down and not be able to do the connector. So I think I got hung up in the process of going from one code officer to a new code officer.
Well, I think what the board will discuss too is what we have to be careful about. I've run into this situation before where someone was trying to use an old structure towards the square footage that they have, and if there was no permit for it, we were not allowed to. So anyways, it's something we'll have to discuss about what leeway we have here and what's grandfathered or considered non-conforming and acceptable or not. So
Okay. Well,
we can talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great
That's fine.
idea to take it down, and I know we'll have to look at all the square footage and the impervious
okay.
Yeah, I mean,
situation, so.
his lot is 16,552 square feet. And that is
16.
16,552.
Okay, I was about there.
And he is correct that in between the connector right now, it is an impervious surface right now. There's a pavers.
Okay.
So we wouldn't be adding to the impervious that way.
Do we know what percentage of impervious surface there is in the lot?
I don't know the whole calculations, no.
I've attempted to do that, and when we have our discussion, we're gonna walk through it together, because I know this is tight, so we have to be careful and look at this, so absolutely. Yeah,
Can I ask a question?
absolutely.
I just want to be certain that you're going to lift the garage, but it'll stay in the same footprint? It's not going to come closer to the road? Because you're pretty close there.
Well, I think I'm 47 feet from the road. We would actually come forward, which would allow us to take some of that pitch away.
He would, just so you know, I mean, it's still, if he moves it forward, he can't go any further than the 30
From
foot
the
setback
road,
currently.
I guess that's what I was trying
Yeah,
to
he
get
couldn't,
at.
yeah, he wouldn't be allowed to bring it back any farther than 30 feet from the property line.
And also, the pictures you sent were great, and they show a lot of the runoff, as you said. And I'm wondering, with the garage being lifted and the new driveway, that water's going to go to the right towards your property? Am I right?
Yeah, there's quite a strip between his house and mine. And it seems, there's all trees, so that seems to suck up any water that does, come down off the road, pretty much, other than where his paved driveway just allows for.
So it's just a natural outlet? It's not a culvert or anything?
Should be,
But it is on your land.
Yeah, you
It
guys.
is on your land,
Excuse me,
where the trees are.
Oh, yeah.
Louise,
Yeah.
hold on one second.
Sorry.
So when you go up to speak next, we'll ask questions of you and go back and forth with that,
I
but
didn't
right now
intend to
you're not.
speak, but-
No.
I just want to do it so we get you on record, so
Okay.
we'll go through all that, so we'll get you up at the podium when we're done with Mr. Volpe, but, I need you to help me with something. Explain, in your application, I completely understand, the pictures were fabulous. I understand the drainage problem, and I completely understand why you're trying to raise things up. I can see why you would need to do that. What I don't understand is why the garage needs to go from 412.09 square feet, it looks like, to 720 square feet, and what that has to do with runoff and drainage.
Well, the garage is, you really need to look at the inside structure of the garage. They're 2x6s, and I cannot use the upstairs for any storage. So if I'm going to make this investment, if it's approved, I thought that it would be a best practice for me to do this and allow it to, take advantage of expansion and improve the structure.
I understand improve the structure, it's the expansion that I'm trying to understand, because you're saying this is because of the drainage and the water situation. So that's all, I need to understand why the
Right,
expansion is
and,
necessary.
well, according, I think, and I don't know how this works with code, but the garage is back 100 feet from the shoreline. So that means that I can actually improve it or increase it by 30%. And that's what I've done in the plan that was developed by Mike Andrews.
The 30% is from 100 feet in. Once you're beyond that 30 expansion doesn't count. I mean, in other words, he can expand whatever as long as he doesn't increase the impervious. Once he's beyond the 100 feet. That 30% rule is only for 100 feet in towards the water. Once you're beyond the 100 feet,
Right.
there's no, it just goes to lot coverage.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's what I'm doing. I mean, I knew, I had it surveyed, and it was 100 feet from shoreline, which was actually good news.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, I might as well, if I'm gonna make this investment, I might as well utilize it as best I can. I don't know if I've answered your question, but that's pretty much,
So there,
why
was
I'm
there
doing
any consideration of, instead of having that connector between the garage and the house, if you wanted to expand the garage, why not just expand on the other side and connect it directly to the house, rather than go into a setback reduction?
well, it's a very narrow passageway between the house and the garage. I think it's only, if it's 4 feet, it's a lot.
It looks like about 4,
Yeah,
yeah, which that's what you're asking for.
right,
Right, is 4 feet,
right, to connect it.
yeah.
Well, 4 feet's not to connect it. He wants 4 feet towards the property line on the other side.
Right, I'm just asking about expanding it 4 feet and attaching it
Oh,
directly
yeah.
to the home,
Right.
rather than encroaching on the side setback.
Well, it would be nice to have a 2-car garage. Okay?
Yep.
If it would be nice if I can have that and have, you know, a supportive neighbor allow me to do so. I guess that's the reason for the 4 feet.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions
I'm all set.
for Louise?
How much higher would the new roof be in the garage than what is presently there?
You know, that was in the actual plan as well.
Well, I didn't get the height
I
of
think
what-
it actually lifts up, I'm guessing maybe 4 feet because it's a vaulted ceiling. I'm not entirely sure what it would be.
And Luis, now that he's beyond the 100 feet, 35 feet is your height restriction.
Right.
Yep.
But I was just concerned because I know in the past they've been, the planning board especially has been concerned about walling in the lakes. Meaning anybody on the road can't see beyond your building to see the lake.
But he can have 35 feet,
Yeah.
right, that's the,
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
Yep. And again, when he submits his plans, that's one of the things that requires just to show me what the height is of the building.
very good. Any other questions?
I got another. What is your frontage on Quarry Cove Road?
Frontage is 100 feet.
I mean, it's a good square. I mean, I know you said there was 100 feet on the lake.
Yep. And it's 100 on the road.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Actually, it might even be more, but I'd have to look at the map, but I'm sure it's 100 or 120.
What we've been given is 100,
It's 100.
yeah,
According to
Okay.
the vision database and the map, the tax map, it's 100 on the,
Yep.
yeah,
On the road.
Yeah, so it's a legal, non-conforming
Yeah,
lot.
okay.
yeah. Yep, very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else to speak in favor?
Burton Steen, and actually the property is owned in my wife's trust, and I'm the trustee since she passed away a year and a half ago. I have no objection to what Bob is planning to do. I can see what his difficulty is, even in the winter, probably just getting in and out of the garage, because it's quite a, I don't know if you've been out for a look at it, but it's quite a steep, dip in there. And, if it'll solve also some, water issues, drainage, I'm certainly in favor of it. Anything else, questions you have?
You want to ask your question?
No questions?
Thank
Thank
you very
you.
much. Is there anyone else to speak in favor? Anyone to speak opposed? Okay, anyone else to speak at all? Okay, then we'll close the public portion of this application, and I open it to board discussion. And Scott, is there anything you'd like to add to this?
I mean, my objective is to have you guys come to your own opinion. So, I mean, other than going for his setback, I don't think there's an issue with the impervious coverage there. That would be one of my concerns, and the height concern would be the other one, as far as his setback reduction, asking for it.
Then I'll just quickly go through just to show for the record that this is an LRR2, Limited Residential Recreational 2 district. It includes those areas suitable for low-density residential and recreational development as designated on the Raymond official land use map. It includes areas other than those in the resource protection or stream protection districts. And we're talking about a side setback. The minimum setbacks normally are the front 30 feet, the side 20 feet, the rear 30 feet, and normal high water line is the 100 feet. And the appeals from decisions under shoreland zoning provisions and variances from the shoreland zoning provisions are governed by the appeals and variance procedures contained in the shoreland zoning provisions, and are not governed by Article 6 of the Land Use Ordinance. And just to be clear, this board does, according to 1B, we do have the authority to authorize variances within the limitations and set forth in these ordinance provisions. And under variance appeals, they may be granted under only the following conditions. The board shall limit any variances granted as strictly as possible in order to ensure conformance with the purposes and provisions of these ordinance provisions to the greatest extent possible, and in doing so may impose such conditions to a variance as it deems necessary. The party receiving the variance shall comply with any conditions imposed. And then the Board of Appeals may grant reductions from the minimum setback requirements set forth in Section 15A of these provisions according to all of the following criteria. And I'm just going to read through these, and then I'd like us to discuss, and then we'll go through one at a time and get on record how we feel about that. So 15A of these provisions, 1, setback reduction appeals are only available to reduce the minimum requirements for setbacks of structures from lot boundary lines. Setback reduction appeals shall not be used and are not available from bodies of water as provided in these provisions. Setback reduction appeals may only be granted and are only available for lots with a residential dwelling as the principal structure. The Board of Appeals may grant a setback reduction appeal if the board finds that granting the setback reduction will not result in unreasonable interference with the privacy interests of the abutting landowners. In granting a setback reduction, the Board of Appeals may attach reasonable conditions which it may deem necessary to serve the purpose of these provisions. A setback reduction appeal shall not be granted to enable construction or renovation that will create additional dwelling units. And just for our own information, per Article 12, applicability and definition of terms used in this ordinance, a dwelling unit is one or more habitable rooms designed, intended, or used for living quarters by one or more persons living together as a family with living, sleeping, sanitary, and cooking facilities, including within the meaning of cooking facilities, a stove, hot plate, a microwave oven, or other device for heating or cooking food. Just so that's clear what we're talking about. And 6, the setback reduction appeal shall not be granted to enable construction or renovation that will result in more than one garage on the lot that is the subject of the appeal. 7, no setback reduction appeal may be granted that will result in impervious surface lot coverage of greater than 15%. And 8, the setback reduction appeals may only be granted the minimum extent necessary to accomplish the purpose of the appeal. Setbacks may not be reduced by setback reduction appeal to less than the following absolute minimum setbacks. Front yard would be 15, and here we're talking side, so no more than down to 10 feet, if that's the proper way to say that. So that's what we have to consider. So I can start, just some current concerns that I have. I do understand garages and the need for garages, I think, in Maine in the winter. This property has a garage on it, and again, I'm focusing on the application says, due to the driveway elevation, currently, the runoff to protect the lake, the dangerous ice buildup on the driveway and walkway entryway into the house, the water backing up into the basement, which I think all absolutely understand the need to correct that. I understand also the need to rebuild this garage. It sounds like it needs some work on it. But I'm not completely sure about why the garage needs to expand in order to fix the problem that we're talking about here. So, any other comments, just to start, from the board?
I can work on one of the 4 hardships.
Yeah, no, this is a setback reduction, so based on all of our understandings on how the ordinance has been written on variances for the town of Raymond.
Specific, there's variances and then there's setback variance, 2 different criteria. So-
They have,
Yeah,
yeah, either way we look at it, a setback reduction could be considered a form of a variance. However, it's not, it doesn't fall under needing to prove hardship, because the town has set those requirements that I just read, 1 through 8.
Okay.
For getting a
I'm new
setback
at this, so
reduction.
obviously I need some more education.
For getting a setback reduction. It's something that we continuously discuss. But that's where we are today. And if you see the application that the Volpes have to fill out as well, or anyone that comes in to file an appeal, they have a variance, and then they have a setback reduction. They're 2 different things. So we're up against, again, it's under section 16, administration under the town of Raymond shoreland zoning provisions, under appeals, there's variance appeals, and then number 2, and F under that is where the Board of Appeals may grant reductions from the minimum setback requirements, which is what we're talking about today. So we have those criteria that I just read.
Yep.
We're gonna walk through and see if we feel that the criteria have been met, which will include the 15% impervious.
I will say, I didn't get to the sidewalk, but I did take a drive over, and I looked from the street what I could see. And you've got a unique piece of property there, and because of the grade from the road down to the lake. I also think that it's pretty narrow lot. That's why I asked about your frontage on the road, because it's obviously 100 feet only. I don't know how I would approach your problem if I were an engineer of some sort to make it better. Because the runoff is going to go. It has no other place to go but down. So I feel for you. I really do. But I like to think that encroaching on setbacks is kind of a special thing. And I know that your neighbor has said that they approve, but I'm not sure that I like the idea going to 24 feet with your garage where you presently have 20.
Scott, before we try to do the calculations or whatnot, so what do we do with this land dog? Are we considering that this is an illegal, non-conforming structure?
I mean, if there's no permit, which we couldn't find any, there wasn't any via from what Mr. Volpe and Chris had discussed, and with the, yes, it does not have any permits. We could not find any. A lot of these, sometimes they pop up with permits, sometimes, well, they weren't allowed, I couldn't tell you the year, but that's currently, according to the folder and what was in there previous that Chris had, that this was not a permitted structure at that time.
Okay, which all that means is we can't count that. Like, that could be a condition is to remove that, but we can't count the 12 by 12, removing that towards,
Oh, as far as the impervious? or-
yeah.
Well, that's one of the things that what we don't have on here would be the calculations of what is there for impervious.
Okay, well, we'll figure that out. We're gonna.
Well,
try
you can do some of it, but the other things we can't see that are not
Yeah.
on here are walkways, the driveway, so you have to count those as well.
Right,
The board can, well, it says you can't grant one if it goes over the 15%. You can make a condition that it has to be at the 15%. But right now, we don't have the calculation, so we could do structures, and that's all we'd be able to do without any measurements from the driveway
should
and
we
the
attempt to
sidewalk.
tackle that now? Everybody to figure out the proper,
I'd rather have exact measurements than,
we know what's there, right? So we know that,
well, you can figure out the structure first, and see if that, the two structures, if they go beyond it to begin with. And then we could,
I think I put the house down at, let's see. You guys all have
Yep.
this sheet with the measurements?
Yes.
just want to double check the sheet.
It may be less. Is the house, let's see, we've got 34. And then I know you've got different things here, and there's a deck there. Is it approximately 34 by 38 that we have to count in that section?
I'm trying to get to assessing first. I'd prefer their
Yep.
measurements. I'm
Yep.
just trying to get
I
there.
Okay.
have it pulled up here if you want it.
Great.
You do have it, because this is going slower
Yep,
than
this is
that.
gonna let me turn it.
Yeah, that's good. Sorry.
I just want to make sure, guys, that we're not, how close it is. We need to know that.
Okay, so the first floor is basically the footprint of the house. And that is 1,076. There is a porch, open finish, that is 16 square feet.
Okay.
And the deck is 212 square feet.
Okay.
And everything else is basement, but that doesn't count because that's in the original footprint of the house.
Okay. Great. And then we count the existing garage.
Yep, that is 20, say it was 20,
Looks like
24 by 16.
Yes.
the existing one.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah, I've got
I'm sorry, yeah,
20.3
you're
by
correct. I'm sorry, I'm looking
20.3.
at the proposed.
Yeah. Okay. So is that 412.09?
Because as For his lot, for his 15% coverage, he's allowed 2,482.8 for impervious.
Can you say that again?
2,482.8.
Okay. Yep. Available.
Where am I currently? What is the current calculation?
That's what you're allowed for.
No,
im-
240.
Yeah, that's what you could cover to cover your lot.
2,482.8.
What am I currently?
That's
Well,
what we're trying to figure
figure-
out.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So was it 412.09 for the garage?
Well, it's 400 square feet.
And it was 16 something for
There was
16 for the porch, 212 for the deck,
Yep, 212 for the deck.
1,076 for the first floor square footage. What about the driveway where that's cement, right?
Yeah, that's pervious. I just don't know the dimensions of that.
Is it wider than the garage?
Well, you can look at the picture probably and see if it is.
Slightly.
Yeah,
it's about the same width as the garage.
yeah.
That's
Hard
what
to
it looked
tell
like
in
to
the snow.
me.
Yeah.
About-
But we don't know how far it is from.
Well, on here, on the,
Here might have something
yeah.
in here.
It's 47 feet from the door to the road.
okay. So 20 by 47?
Right, and that, I want to remove all the concrete.
You remove it, but like I said, when they do gravel, gravel is still considered an impervious.
That's 940 square feet. For the driveway. And we said in between the garage and the house, that's okay?
Yeah, there's impervious coverage there now, so if he extended to the garage, there would be no change in the calculation, because it's already covered by an impervious surface now.
But we have to count that. We're trying to figure out where we're at now.
Yeah. Yep, so it would be, I don't even know. what
Maybe
it is.
4 feet wide.
It's 4 feet wide, and it looks like,
Is it the length of the house?
Not quite,
no,
right?
it's
No.
not, it's, yeah, it's less than the length of the garage, so, I'm gonna say 16 feet, maybe,
Is it that much?
I don't know,
Yeah.
I mean, I'd have to measure it.
Because is the garage, is it expanding backwards towards the water? It's not,
No,
right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I can always.
And the
say-
house, I'm just looking at where so if the garage isn't expanding back, it doesn't go the full 16. I think maybe you got 10 feet there, so 4 by 10, 40 square feet. Is there anything else we need to count?
No, let's see.
We don't count the, what do we do with the 12 by 12 with this?
Are there walkways or anything like that?
It would be, let's see, how do I want to word this? It would be a kind of a moot point if it was removed without, if you,
Doesn't count, period.
yeah, I wouldn't count it in towards that.
Okay. And there are walkways, but we don't know the dimensions of that.
Yeah, because the old Google Earth one that they have on here is before Mr. Volpe fixed what was there
Okay.
before.
Well, we can see where we're at with this anyways. See how much room he's got. Anybody else adding to check me on this. 16. I've got 1,076 plus 16 plus 212 plus 400 plus 940 plus 40.
2684.
Yep, 2684,
2684.
which is over the 2482.8. Without even counting walkways or anything.
Hmm.
And 2687 or 84 represents,
That's, you were
Impervious
allowed 2482 of impervious
So
lot coverage. Is that correct? Is that how I say it?
Yep. So basically, yeah, what it is that you're over what's
Like
allowed.
200.
You're not. It's okay, but you just can't. You can't add any more to it because of where you're at. You can exchange it. You can take stuff away to that's impervious.
Right, we can't add to it.
Yeah, like you
That's
know,
the-
so, like some people do. They'll take a wide driveway and take it down to a one-lane driveway. Well, all that square footage that you just had in that lane that you just tore up, that can go towards your impervious area if you wanted to expand.
okay, so impervious walkways,
Yep.
and the driveway, concrete, that creates this whole footprint of what's existing.
Yep.
And I cannot exceed what's there. What you're telling me is we're at 2687.
Mm-hmm.
84.
It could actually be more, because I don't think we've added in some of the things that were asked, like walkways and other things.
Right,
I could
or
very-
expanding the garage. We're just talking
Well,
about
no,
current
I'm just
state.
talking about,
Yeah.
I would like to know.
Can
you
you,
know.
can you go up to the podium if, just, because we want to make sure you get recorded.
No, that's okay.
No,
Yeah,
you
we
have
know.
to. You have to, I'm sorry.
No, that.
Sorry, they have to get this on record.
Okay, no, I'm trying to really clearly understand this impervious coverage. And that if in your calculation, I'm at 2687, Louise had mentioned walkways. There is a walkway in front of the house, which is another 4 by, you know, it could be 4 by 10.
Let me try to help with this part. We didn't even count the walkways. We said
Okay.
based on things that we were pretty sure about, because we don't
Okay.
want to be unfair to you in counting.
Well,
things
and
that-
I don't want to be unfair in
Yeah.
doing this, but I want to make sure that in the outcome is done in fair. You know, this is a fair process. So that, you know, if you're saying it's 2687,
2684, just to make
84.
sure we have, yeah.
then, and I'm only allowed 2482, then I'm already over by 200.
Right.
Okay.
We're not gonna, your lot is a legal non-conforming lot. We're not gonna make you take away to get to that number, but what we can't do is let you add to go even higher, because you're already over what you're allowed.
But if I understand this correctly, if I wanted to build a structure to enclose the walkways, would I be okay doing that within 2684?
Yes, because you're actually covering an impervious with an impervious.
Okay, so if I wanted to make the garage longer going towards the road, but within that 30 feet, I would be able to do that.
Correct, because you're just exchanging
Okay.
impervious for impervious. Yeah.
I would be able to go as high, but not as high as 35
Five.
feet? Okay. So I think I can go high, I can go forward, and I can connect the house to the garage
As far as
within the
within
footprint,
the pervious, yeah.
within the pervious
Mhm.
footprint, and not remove the dock on the front shore.
Well, the dock's got to go one way. No, that's a separate issue
Well,
because that's that's something that.
yeah, but that is grandfathered in. That was built, and the original owner that sold me it has documented in the transaction that, and I have pictures, that was built back in 1950 something. And I don't understand why we have to remove it now.
a lot of it also has to do with any non-conforming structure. You can't replace any more than 50% of the assessed value within a year. In other words,
We only took the boards off the top and we replaced them. The sides are original. You can look at it. Everything is original. It was a safety thing.
If I may, as far as the 12 by 12 structure, for this hearing, I don't think we need to get into this part of it as far as the removal, unless, if we are to approve this, we could put it in as a condition that it must be removed. But as far as everything else, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, all that really is important to us is that, as far as we're concerned, it's not permitted, it's not a legal structure, so we can't count it in to the impervious lot calculations. In our minds, it doesn't exist.
You're talking about the land doc?
Yes. Yeah, I think to this hearing,
I-
I think,
That is
as far
understood.
as,
That is understood.
okay, as far as what happens, like I said, it depends upon whether this
But there
is-
are plenty of examples of these structures that were built back in the 50s that are there. And the landowners have taken care of them, or they're letting them rot and fall into the lake, which is
Like I
a
said-
bigger problem.
Yeah, and what you can do is, like I said, we have to wait and see, we have to walk through these one at a time and vote on them. But as far as, if we approve this, and that could be in there as a condition, is to have it removed, but outside of that, I think you'll have to take it up with Scott as you move forward as to that needing to be removed. We can't,
and I mean, another thing too is if you don't feel comfortable with the impervious or anything like that, you can table it and do some research if you so feel comfortable. I just want to.
are there any of these square footages that we feel are that
No,
off?
I mean, everything we took was from the
Yeah.
assessing, and that's
Okay.
what I would go by mostly
Okay.
unless I went out there and actually measured it, which,
I'll
We
open it
don't-
to
we're
the
very
rest of the
rare.
board members. Do you guys have a concern with the calculation that we looked at?
No.
I think we're okay.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments from the board that we're still discussing here? Rick? No?
No.
No, Louise?
I don't think so, because I obviously was on the wrong track.
Oh, no, that's all right. Okay, then, we're gonna walk through the setback reduction requirement. And this is how we've done it in the past. We're gonna do it this way. We're gonna vote on them one at a time. Okay?
Okay.
All right. So starting with, again, we're variance appeals to section F, which looks at the requirements for minimum setback reductions, excuse me. 1, the setback reduction appeals are only available to reduce the minimum requirements for setback structures from lot boundary lines. Setback reduction appeals shall not be used and are not available from bodies of water provided in this provision. So basically, that's telling us you can only use it from the front or the sides. So, like the board to vote, has that requirement been met? All those that agree? All those opposed? Okay, thank you. That one has been met. Setback reduction appeals may only be granted and are only available for lots with a residential dwelling as the principal structure. Does the board agree that this only has a principal structure of a residential dwelling? That requirement has been met?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Not met? 0. Thank you. The Board of Appeals may grant a setback reduction appeal if the board finds that granting the setback reduction will not result in unreasonable interference with the privacy interest of the budding landowners. And we had Mr. Bert Steen here to speak in favor. So has this requirement been met, that it will not result in unreasonable interference?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And anyone no? That's 4-0. In granting a setback reduction, the Board of Appeals may attach reasonable conditions which it may deem necessary to serve for the purposes of these provisions. We don't have to vote on that, we just know that we can. A setback reduction appeal shall not be granted to enable construction or renovation that will create additional dwelling units. And if I may ask a question, Mr. Volpe, just to clarify this. My understanding was there's no cooking, bathrooms, or anything that was planned for inside of that garage? Thank you. Is that okay? I didn't make him go up to the podium. Okay. So is that requirement been met?
Yes.
All in favor?
Would we write it into, as a condition?
If he was asking for it?
Well, you can put any condition you
Yeah.
want if you feel.
I mean, I think it
But
should be stated.
we don't, it says that a setback reduction appeal shall not be granted to enable construction or renovation that will create additional dwelling units. You can't
I'm not
for
gonna
this,
be
and he's
writing-
not.
No, I know that, but
Yeah.
I worked in the town hall for a long time. And sometimes things are forgotten if it isn't in writing in the agreement. People kind of forget that, you know, even a
Okay.
previous owner to you.
We're
Yes.
just seeing if we can, if we can approve the side setback. This is part of that process. Yeah, so we could not do it if he were putting a dwelling
I
unit
realize that,
in the
but
garage.
I was
Yeah, what
thinking
you-
it could be a condition of the approval, if we should approve
Just
it.
that
say
it
it
never, that
again.
it never becomes a,
Just
can
to
never
say
be
it
used
again.
as a.
Yeah,
as a
if you
dwelling.
wanna, yeah, if we need to
I
throw
think
that
would be
in.
useful.
That's if we approve it,
Yeah.
so, yeah. 6, a setback reduction appeal shall not be granted to enable construction or renovation that will result in more than one garage on the lot that is subject of the appeal. Has he met that requirement? All in favor of that?
Yes.
4. Against? 0. And 7, no setback reduction appeal may be granted that will result in impervious surface lot coverage of greater than 15%. Has he met that requirement?
He's over that.
All in favor that he's met the requirement? Those opposed? Okay. And that was based on all the calculations that we did, that the current situation is greater than 15%. And the setback reduction appeals may only be granted the minimum extent necessary to accomplish the purpose of the appeal. Setbacks may not be reduced by setback reduction appeal to less than the following absolute minimum. And this was, the absolute minimum was 10 on the side. He was asking for 16. So he has met this requirement. All in favor? Opposed? Okay. So what this means is now we vote whether we grant or deny. Requirement is that you have to meet all of those conditions. And he has not met the conditions. So all those in favor of allowing this setback reduction? All opposed? 4-0. 4-0. Or deny. And you understand why it's due to the calculate, you went over, you're over the 15%.
But I can enclose what I have.
Yes.
Okay, so I can go back and I think if we look at the original plan that was done by Mike.
Podium, please.
Thank you.
Sorry.
So I think I understand what can be done, which means that I can take the walkway and I can enclose it. I can take the front where there's a walkway and enclose that because it's beyond 100 feet from the shoreline.
You can, as far as
I
this,
can, I can connect
can-
it with a walkway to the front of the house.
how's the well, the question is, how's the walkway in front of the house?
It's stone.
I mean, does it come out and away from the house and come back in? Or is it run parallel? Reason why I'm asking, because there is a fine line with that.
Okay. Well,
Because if it comes out beyond the house, I'm gonna call it just an impervious coverage, not be able to be covered by a structure. It's just because it's not, the
Okay.
area that we're talking about in between basically is attached to the garage and attached to the
Okay,
house.
so we'd have to look at that.
Yep.
But at least the back,
Mhm.
and then where it comes out to meet the deck can be now enclosed because it's all impervious.
It's impervious.
And that was part of this
Well-
calculation.
I think it would probably be best if, I mean, it doesn't really affect them. It'd be
Okay.
something that you and I would have to meet
Okay.
and talk about rather than here, because it really
Okay.
doesn't affect your
Okay.
setback.
Well, I'm just trying to get back to, I've, had planners work with this. I have Bob Varney, who's the contractor, and I need to make sure that what I've invested in their time and with the excavator, that I get back to them with whether or not I even want to continue.
And what this means tonight is basically, we could not give you the encroachment on the 20-foot required side setback. But as far as proceeding with any other plans, so you can't expand the garage into that 20-foot setback area
What, 20 foot or 4 feet?
on the side.
Okay, so I want to understand 20, because I only asked for 4.
Right, you're required to have 20 feet on your side.
Oh, I see what you're saying, 20 feet in distance,
Right,
okay.
and what you were asking was,
Is
can I take
16.
4 feet of that?
Right,
The requirements that we went through,
Okay.
including the impervious lot calculations,
Right.
were to allow us to give you that
Okay.
extra 4 feet.
Right.
So we can't.
right,
So, but what that means is,
But I
you can
can-
work with Scott on anything else to
Right.
stay within your minimum side setback and
Right.
front setback.
I can lift the garage up, change the pitch of the driveway.
Yeah.
Um,
All it impacts is that you can't expand the garage
To
into that 20-foot
20.
zone.
Got it,
Yep,
okay,
yep, okay.
yeah.
All right, thank you very
Understood.
much,
Thank you.
Mr. Volpe.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda. Shift here. There we have it. David Garish, the Brake Exhaust Center, map 55, lot 061000, zone C, 1219 Roosevelt Trail. And this is the request of a conditional use for selling used cars. And thank you, Louise, for mentioning in the previous one about the site walk. I failed to mention that, but we did do a site walk on May 11th. Len and I and Scott were there. And we basically looked at the property just to see what was there and what you were considering. So
I
it's
apologize if I was supposed to be there and it wasn't.
not a requirement, no, not that I'm aware of. So, whoever would like to speak on behalf of the application.
Yes, my name's Dave Garish, business at 1219 Roosevelt Trail called the Brake Exhaust Center. Started doing business there in June of 2016. I rent the space and purchased all the assets that go along with the auto repair business. After nearly 3 years, I've found that the expenses are a little bit larger than I had anticipated, and the source of revenue I'm creating with the repair business is a struggle to keep things going. I felt that adding, a used car license to the property to enable, a few cars, not going to change the business primarily. It's still primarily auto repair. Basically, for the winter, when things slow down, I like to keep my employees there. Having a few cars in, repair, fix up, put them up for sale as some extra revenue as well. So it's for revenue and to keep employees there year-round, not have to lay them off in the winter. The property, I am the majority renter of that piece of property, even though I do have some tenants on either side of me. I own the majority of the building and parking area. So it's really quite simple. Continue repairing at a used car dealership if so can be done.
Any questions? Louise?
Scott, did you find out how many original parking spaces there were to be for that business?
They didn't really get into that too
Before we
much.
do that, I will, if we're gonna go there right now, just for the record, I just want you to know, we had a couple email exchanges that, we're allowed to ask for information to be brought here so we can make decisions.
Sure.
This one, we wanted, you had every right to be aware of the email. So I'm just gonna read it to you. Louise was asking, Auto Works appeal, I would like to know how many parking spaces are required for this building and if he's going to use some of them for used cars. Is that overriding what the planning board has decided in their approval of the original building permit? I thought maybe it would be best if all questions to the CEO came from you instead of just one of us. We set that aside, I think that was to me. And just so you know, I did respond to her. We can't get into discussions, it all has to take place here. But I just let her know, for our own educational purposes, that she could go review Article 9, the minimum standards, land use standards, conditional uses, off-street parking, to try to make those calculations, which we will do here with you,
Okay.
just so you're aware, okay? So that's for the record. So we did that. Anyways, please proceed.
How many employees do you have?
Not counting myself, because I really don't draw a paycheck from there, I have 3. I have an office person and 2 mechanics.
What's the relationship between your business and AC Auto?
No relationship, he is a separate tenant, he just rents the corner office to the,
But he sells used cars also?
he does, yes.
So in effect, you'd be in competition with your neighbor.
Yes.
And to Luis's question, looking at the site plans that were all in here, they dealt with everything with the storage units around here, but I cannot find anything up front other than what his property line is. There's no mention of how many parking spaces. I'm guessing it was either one not noted or not looked at the time of its originality, but this was back in, one of them here was back in '99 as far as I can go back for a site plan for there, and there really wasn't any mention as to actually how many spaces. None of it's ever been chalked out.
But do we go by,
It's kind of it's different because where you're selling used cars, you can't really go by so much as a parking space because it's not necessarily, most of the wording has to deal with, how they word it, is more customers and employees than it is for a used car lot. That's the only time they get down to numbers.
when we go through the conditional uses minimum standards, we might be able to take a crack at what it looks like as far as
Yeah.
spaces. How many, do you know how many spaces you use, like day to day? right now?
Sort of. I actually had the landlord there this morning, and we were
Yeah.
going over this information. It looks like it's the roadside, it's approximately, I think 16 spaces it was, and then we have 3 spaces in front of the office. In between each bay, there's enough space for a vehicle, and if we have overflow, we just park them in front of the bays that we're working in. So it's probably around 20 spaces total.
But the 16 spaces that are facing 302, you park cars behind them?
Yeah, that'd be double, so just as AC Auto's doing, I would have to do the same, two rows, a distance across that 75-foot area.
And you would put the cars for sale right on 302, is that?
Yes,
In the-
the state requires a certain footage that you have to designate to sales only. You can't park customer's car, I can't do repairs in there, and we would just carve out that area. So that basically the area by the sign near the 302 would be vacant except for the used cars that would be for sale.
Okay. So the state requires that?
Yes.
Okay. So that's out of our purview, so.
And,
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead,
that's okay.
Louise, sorry.
And I'm assuming that's not going to hinder any pass-through egress
No,
or
not at all.
entrance or anything like that?
That's correct. Well, we'll make sure if you notice how AC Auto has their cars parked, it's gonna be kind of similar to that. You can drive between right in one driveway and out the other. That'll all be maintained as open throughway.
Are you adding employees, or is this utilizing the current ones?
Utilizing the current ones, I would hope, if,
Yeah.
you know, if things get better, that would be the plan, you know. It's just been a real struggle for 3 years to keep the place going, basically. So I've got to make a change one way or the other. We've done subtle changes to try to, you know, increase traffic and income, but this is one that I think would help.
How would it change your business?
The different, I've talked to a few people, some friends of mine that have the used car sales going, and you know, you're going to go, whatever you decide to purchase and put on the lot for sale is going to require work. You can't just, you know, go to an auction and get something and expect it to be ready to sale. So that's work that I can give my employees. In turn, it's going to generate the income to pay them to do the work. I'm not talking a lot of cars. I'm really thinking 3 to 5 at the most at any one given time. That's my plan. I mean, it could expand, I guess, as long as I meet that state square footage area. But I don't anticipate it. But if things go real well and I need to hire someone else to keep going, then I would, you know, obviously like to do that. But right now, we were so slow in the winter that despite I was able to keep everybody on, it was a real struggle to stay, to pay the bills. So I don't want to have to go through that again if I can avoid it.
And have you gotten any comments from AC?
Not really. I mean,
no one's here tonight,
he's
so-
concerned that the state may have a few issues with him being there. They may require some additional things that I'm not aware of yet.
Right, but
The
not
first
as far as-
process for me is to get, you know, the town approval. Then I go ahead and apply to the state.
Gotcha.
But where he does it, he knows a lot of the state rules, and he just said they're going to question a few things because I'm in the lot and, you know, this and that and the other thing. But I won't know till I really go to them and figure that out.
Gotcha. Any other?
Obviously, he's not for it because it's going to be competition for him. But that's the way it goes.
I was gonna say, it might turn out to be like McDonald's and Burger King, might draw more
Yeah.
people.
Could be.
Would you have comments?
No, I mean, that is one of the things where he hasn't gotten state approval. That is one of the things that you can do on your conditions that way, if because when you give a variance, it stays with the land.
Right.
So if you kind of want to keep that in check, that it only stays with, you know, if he has the ability to get it from the state, then yes, you can put a condition that with state approval. That way, if he doesn't get it, then he can't have it. Just it just kind of covers you a little bit that somebody else can't come in and do it if you're not really.
It can't be grandfathered then.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't put it in there, it'll stay. So whoever comes in, if he decides to sell everything, whoever comes in can do the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And it all depends on how do you want to look at it.
And what's the benefit to us putting in there that he gets state approval? Just, it's better to have it on that.
Yeah, I mean, because there's no way, I mean, unless he gives it to me, I'm not aware of any way that I know if he ever got it or not.
Okay. Gotcha.
I mean, you don't have to. Like I said, you can put conditions on you however you see fit.
Any other questions from Mr. Garish?
Are you gonna bring up the fire?
Oh, yes, thank you so much.
And just a comment on that, I did talk to Wayne Jones. He has been in contact. They are working on it. I think they're on phase 2 or 3.
Yeah. What I guess most everything on that list was done. It was completed by
Yeah.
Randy. For some reason, the documentation, the inspector then is no longer with the fire department, and I think a lot of it just didn't get documented.
Yeah.
So we have a very small checklist of things we have to take care of.
He has been working with them, and one thing Wayne
That
did
could be
ask,
conditional.
was asked that he get a plan of correction, which I think he's going to talk to you about, or if he might have already.
Yeah, he
had,
was there this morning. Him
that he
and,
just gets one from him. Wayne said at the end of this coming week, that's what he would like to see for the conditions, and basically it's just to give him he's been in contact with them. It's just to give him a timeline or the
Okay.
sequence
So
of how he's going to do
it's not that these
things.
are completed, but the plan is in place and it's working.
Some of these are completed, and that's
Okay.
what I mean. Wayne said that he has been working with him on knocking stuff off the list.
Okay, good.
Yeah, he just asked to make it a condition of approval.
Yep, no, that's good. Do I need to read this for the record, or is this already in? the memorandum from Wayne Jones?
Well, you can read
David,
that one and go
you've seen
through.
this.
Yes.
Is that, did it come out? I saw an email that came out.
Yeah,
I can read it for the record, just to
yeah, you
make
can,
sure
just
when
do
we
the,
that.
yep,
Um,
you can.
This is a memorandum from Fire Rescue to David Garish, copy Scott Dvorak. I never say that right, sorry,
Yep,
Scott.
close enough.
Code Enforcement Officer from Wayne C. Jones, Raymond Fire Inspector, 1219 Roosevelt Trail, it's what it's regarding. After reviewing the Appeals Board application for this property, it has been determined that the property owner applicant will need to submit a written plan of correction to the Raymond Fire Rescue Department to address outstanding life safety and fire protection issues. See the inspection report dated February 12th, 2015, and life safety inspection letter dated March 1st, 2015. Also, a walkthrough with the fire inspector should be scheduled as part of the fire department review of the application. A preliminary review of available records has determined that at a minimum, the following are requirements that will need to be addressed regarding this proposal. The monitored fire alarm system for the entire complex is required to have annual inspection and testing performed by a certified inspection and testing agency. A copy of the NFPA 72 inspection and testing report must be submitted to the Raymond Fire Rescue Department, RFRD, annually. This inspection and testing and subsequent report is a requirement of NFPA 72, National Fire Alarm Signaling Code, and the Town of Raymond Fire Prevention Ordinance, Article 5. The RFRD inspection file for this address does not have recent inspection and testing reports on file. The fire alarm system needs to be an addressable system whereby initiating devices, pull stations, heat, smoke detectors, etc., identify which device and which tenant space the alarm is being transmitted from to the fire alarm system monitoring company. 3, the owner tenant needs to ensure that keys for each of the tenant spaces are current and inserted in the Knox box, key box at the facility. 4, the entire business complex needs to post suite unit addresses on each of the tenant spaces as designated by the E911 coordinator. The E911 addressing shall be contrasting reflective characters, a minimum of 3 inches high, posted on or near the entrance door to each business as approved by the RFRD. And 5, as a condition of approval, the Fire Rescue Department asks the Raymond Appeals Board to consider requiring the applicant owner to bring this property into compliance with the state and local adopted fire protection codes and ordinances. Please feel free to contact me anytime. Wayne Jones. Okay. Any other questions for him?
I'm just curious, what do you have in mind for signage?
Well, for the time being, I have the current sign, and then there's the area below it that you can letter it, basically. I can put a message on there, whatever, and for the time being, until I get going, just add that to that, now offering sales and service or something along that line. We do want to upgrade the sign. I want to have the idea is to put a new one there with, a little bit more modern, maybe the electronic digital readout, if that's approved to do so.
And that goes through the planning board? Is that who?
If it needed site plan approval, it might go through the planning board, but all commercial signs, if they're not, go through planning, between planning and if we feel like we can't come to a conclusion, then we send it to the planning board.
Okay.
So currently, I plan on keeping it the same, but I would like to upgrade it. That's where I'm at with that.
David, I noticed today when I went by, looks like a Bronco or something that's in the lot with no wheels, et cetera.
Yep.
And I'm wondering, is that a good practice for when people are walking around looking at cars?
It really is, and it's one of my mechanics project vehicles that I am trying to get that pushed along.
Okay.
My goal is to clean that whole area out. We have another 2 customers that have cars there that are disabled that don't want to pay to get them fixed. We've contacted them to get those out of there or bring us the title so we can do so. So I am working on removing everything that is not attractive there, yeah, and that is one of them. I'm pushing to get that cleared up.
Thank you.
Did you said you'd be doing repair work there too?
Yeah, that's still gonna be the
That's
primary
still-
business,
yeah.
yeah. You know, I really am trying to offer a service that's not quite, maybe we're a little cheaper, we can help some people out a little bit. I mean, I don't wanna up my prices to generate revenue. I mean, it's just not my style. I wanna kind of be honest and good about it and have everybody come in and be happy with their service. I
You
figured
said
by
you-
adding the sales, I can, you know, increase the revenue without
Sure.
changing the structure that I have there now.
Because I just know it went under commercial district, they say permitted uses, and they say that auto repair facilities, excluding auto body repair, so there's no
Right,
auto.
right.
You
Can't
know,
do
just
that, right.
send it out if you have to do it, or,
Yeah, we either send it out or we just don't do it.
Okay.
Mostly, we don't do body work.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think, that's another conditional use, correct?
no, it's not allowed at all,
No.
body work.
Any other questions for David?
No.
Okay, thank you. You can have a seat. Is there anyone here, anyone else to speak in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, we'll close the public section, and we'll open it up to board discussion. Comments?
Well, I think if we vote in favor, we need to make a condition for the fire stuff.
Plan of correction. We also could add in, as Scott said, that he'd get the proper state approval.
Mm.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, notification that he gets his state,
Notification of
Yeah.
state approval, is that the way to say it?
yep. I don't know how they do it, I don't know if they give you an email, or they give you a certificate, or just something like that, that we can,
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Me either.
Whatever it is, I'll make sure
Yeah.
I can present that.
yep.
Rick, do you have any
Is-
other comments?
I was gonna say, is there a timeline on that?
We
On
can,
him getting state approval?
I don't know, that's a good,
I've been told it takes a couple months after
Yeah.
I'm done here to get the approval, so.
yeah, it takes a while.
So he can't sell cars until he's got it?
Correct.
He has to have
Okay.
a state certificate to be able to actually sell.
yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
so in other words, for me, I mean, I couldn't allow him to sell until he shows me that he has the ability to sell.
I was gonna just add, I think environmentally, probably selling used cars is more than, or less than what you're doing now anyway.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I've never had a dealership before, but, you know, I've been in this business a long time, so
Yeah,
I do kind of get.
Well, you
how
have
it
to
works,
be
but-
careful of your oil and your water and your
Yeah.
antifreeze and all that sort of stuff already.
okay, what we can do is go through all of the ordinances that we need to. I'm sorry to bore people with some of this. This is a commercial district. The commercial district is intended to serve as the downtown Raymond and to provide a general retail, wholesale service and business facilities in an area convenient to the residents of the town. This district should efficiently utilize space and resources and provide for connectivity among and between businesses in a manner that looks and functions as a linear village with lively year-round business and inviting a safe pedestrian spaces and walkways. Route 302, the roadway through this commercial village, is intended to function as a transportation corridor that moves traffic safely and efficiently through the region while also serving as a safe and easy to navigate local link between the various sections of the commercial village. Site design, landscaping, screening, building placement, and building design in this district should result in visually pleasing, cohesive, village-like atmosphere. Toward the achievement of these purposes, the following minimum standards are established. And in this, again, we said auto repair facilities are permitted use, and under conditional uses, it allows for outdoor sales and service. That's F3, just if you need that. And then, under Article 9, minimum standards for conditional uses. And with this one, we can vote as we go, if you'd like. We'll give that a try. Article 9, minimum standards. A, conditional uses. The board shall approve, deny, or approve with conditions all applications for a conditional use permit. The applicant shall have the burden of proving that his or her application is in compliance with requirements of this ordinance. After the submission of a complete application, the Board of Appeals shall approve an application or approve it with conditions if it makes a positive finding based on the information presented, that the proposed use, 1, will not depart from the general purpose and intent of the ordinance nor from the town's comprehensive plan. Do we feel that requirement has been met? Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
No? 0. It will be compatible with permitted uses within the zone as determined by population, density, design, scale, and bulk of any proposed new structures and intensity of use. Do we feel that requirement is met?
Yes.
Yes.
All those opposed? It will not generate noise, vibrations, fumes, odors, dust, or glare which are detectable at the lot boundaries, and all aspects of the conditional use will be carried on within the structure. Do we feel it's met that requirement?
Yes.
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 Yes. All opposed? 0. This will not cause water pollution, sedimentation, erosion, contaminate any water supply, nor reduce the capacity of the land to hold water, so that a dangerous or unhealthy condition may result. Has he met that requirement?
Yes.
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 5, will not adversely impact any deer wintering area or other important plant or wildlife habitat or scenic area such as views of Sebago Lake or mountains from the public places. Has he met that requirement?
Yes.
Yes.
So, all opposed, 0. Okay. Will not deny light and air to surrounding properties. Has he met that requirement?
Yes.
Yes.
Will not depreciate the economic value of surrounding properties. Has he met that requirement?
Yes.
Yes.
Will have sufficient potable water available for its needs. Met that requirement?
Yes.
Got a water source, I assume,
Yes.
for people.
9, will not create a hazard to either pedestrian or vehicular traffic on the roads and sidewalks serving the proposed use as determined by the size and condition of such roads and sidewalks, lighting, drainage, intensity of use by both pedestrians and also vehicles, and the visibility afforded to pedestrians and the operators of motor vehicles. Has he met that requirement?
Yes.
Yes.
Will not overburden police, fire, and rescue services as determined by response time, accessibility to the site of the proposed use, and numbers and types of emergency personnel and equipment presently serving the community. Has he met that requirement?
Yes.
Yes.
Opposed? 0. And we had, and again, we'll just, we don't need to vote on that. That again, it was under Article 4F, Commercial District, that outdoor sales and service is an allowable conditional use. That's in the ordinance. And before we go to the final vote on that, were there any other, we didn't get into the parking anymore, or any, was there anything else we felt like we needed to be concerned about with the parking?
No, I just was concerned about that because I didn't want to tread on a previous decision by the planning board.
And I know normally, like the off-street parking, they must have 1 space per 200 square feet of gross retail service, but you said this is different.
Yeah,
so
most
it
of it
doesn't
does deals with what type of business you have for customers and how many employees you have, not necessarily an auto lot. Because I think they go underneath what would probably be is what the state requires of him is what they would go after because it's not addressed in our ordinance.
I know when I just tried to do calculations based on the square footage there, that they had plenty of space and it
Yeah.
wasn't, you know.
Yeah, he owns quite a bit of the frontage up
Yeah,
there.
it didn't look like it was gonna be a concern.
So I say the size for usual is what, 9 by 20?
8, I think it's 8.
8 by 20?
8 by,
Had, what that is, 9 feet,
no, 9.
9 feet by 18, 162 square
Anyway,
feet.
I saw an 8 in there somewhere.
I know, so, yeah, it's got all those numbers, okay.
Yeah.
So is it fair to say, Scott, are we allowed to ask you, you don't see any parking issues?
No, because I think the state's gonna dictate that more than, we don't even have an ordinance addressing used car lots.
car lots,
So
okay.
that's,
Okay. So based on this, first we will vote to grant or deny, and then we can decide upon conditions that we'd like to put upon that. So all those in favor of granting this conditional use permit?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. And he met all the requirements that we went through. So let's put conditions on this, if so. Would anyone like to pose a motion for conditions?
I make a motion that we do this state permitting and that the fire department asks them for all that they need.
Plan of corrections.
Yes, we want to get this.
No, that, to plan of
That's-
corrections, that's what that's, you're
Plan of
asking. Yeah,
corrections,
that he
yeah.
has. Yeah. And like I said, Wayne did said he wanted it at the end of the week, which would put us, where's my phones? So is the proper thing to say that we have a plan of correction with the fire department in place and in process? Or did you say Well, Wayne said he wanted it by the end of this week, which would be the 24th of May.
the plan itself, but
Plan
not the
itself.
completion?
Yeah, it's just basically a written statement from him saying that he's going to complete this.
By
It's
May
24th, I think it is. Let's double check that. I don't want to. Yes.
Okay. And that state, notification of state approval is received by Scott. Would anyone like to second the motion?
I second the motion.
All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, so David, the board has approved your application for conditional use permit with the conditions that notification of state approval is received by the CEO, Scott. I'm not putting a time frame on that because we don't know.
No, just
but-
to be determined, because
Yeah.
we really have no idea how soon.
And that a plan of correction is completed, the plan is into the fire department by May 24th, and that this plan is in process. This is the way to put it. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're all set then?
You were.
We
set?
are.
Did we vote on that?
Oh, I think we did.
Yeah, you did.
Yes,
Yeah,
we
you
did.
did.
Finish this.
That's a good one. Good idea. Yeah, that's always a good idea. And what do we have next? Code Enforcement Officer Communications.
We had someone who wanted to try to make the last zoning board of appeals. They did not. Did we reach back
I
out to them?
haven't had a time,
Okay.
but I'll do it tomorrow.
So that one may be coming in front of us again. I don't know. It would be a conditional use. Right now, I don't know if they're gonna follow through if they're not sure. So
Okay.
until we get it, they have everything. It sounds like they want to. I just don't know what their speed of life is currently because I know they have 1 or 2 kids. So I don't know. That kind of might get pushed back for the summer. Don't know. But do we have anything else? Somebody. I don't think right now we have nobody submitting an application.
Okay.
I'm not aware of anything pending.
Yep.
I've got planning board things pending, but not for
Yep.
Board of Appeals.
So might skip out on next month.
Might. I've had all Mary's emails go into the delete bucket now. Okay. Straight there, no. And I wanted to make sure I did not forget to address your question about questions for the code enforcement officer coming through me. And as far as, one of these nights we'll put on the agenda, Mary, to just go over the bylaws quickly that exist for the zoning board.
Yeah.
But in there, there's nothing like that. And I actually would encourage folks to ask their own questions
Okay.
and not come through me.
Yeah, ask
absolutely.
me, and then I
Yeah.
basically will just answer and say, Luis came to me with this question, here is my answer. And then it would be like that.
And, yeah.
But that would be at the meeting as opposed to before the meeting.
Well, you're not, as long as there was no discussion, if you asked a question and I said it and I gave you the answer, nobody else gave their opinion on that answer, then that's fine.
But they just know
It's
what the
once-
question.
Yeah, once they start, well, what about this and what about that, then we're starting to get close to
That's-
an open
yeah.
meeting, so it's,
That's what we kind of look at it. It's safer to, if you want to ask him to bring information, like, I just wanted to warn him that we need, to help us make sure we're counting the right things for impervious surface lot, for example.
Well,
to
as I
bring
did,
that.
because I sent you a second email to talk about the parking spaces.
Yeah.
Yep.
And just,
So that would be the
if
appropriate way
it's,
of doing it.
right, if it's for information, if it's just saying, I'm gonna ask a question, you might as well just save it for the meeting, because we have
Yep.
to do it there anyways, I think
Right.
was all we were considering.
Hmm.
That fair?
Hmm.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn unless there's anything else.
I make the motion that we adjourn.
Second?
All in favor? Yay, okay. Thank you.